Here we are at the archaeological site for the ruins of old John D. Clare's career. And as you can see here, we found an old copy of Custom Heroes. Hey, welcome to the Trick-Taking Table. I'm Taylor, and like you saw, we just dusted off this old gem to talk about both Custom Heroes and Ruins. This is the new game coming out to Kickstarter near you from Allplay, and it is a reimagining, reworking of Custom Heroes. John D. Clare designed both, and there's some awesome development that went into that new edition, especially because John Brager did an amazing job, and also Jake Morrison did wonderful art. The hook of these games, if you're not familiar, is card crafting system. So John D. Clare invented this system called card crafting, or this kind of mechanism really, where it's seen in Mystic Vale or Dead Reckoning. The premise is you have a card, but then you have modifications to the card, and they're sleeved, and so you can take a modification and slide it in, forever changing the card. So this is like a climbing shedding game where you're slowly modifying the cards, and then they stay like that for the rest of the game. So something you do to a card will permanently change it for the rest of the game. Interestingly, this was the first edition, came out. This is the second kind of revamped idea. Lots different, a lot of interesting improvements, in my opinion. But of course, take this with a grain of salt. Allplay sent me this game. I've actually had this one for a long time. It was really cool to play back in the day. So let's see what they've done to Ruins. Let's go to the table and I'll show you how to play both of these. Part of how Ruins works involves this scoreboard. I'm going to show you how it works and then remove it just to save some space. But essentially, you're going to take what player count you're using, and we have 3 players. We're going to put that up here. And then you're going to put each player's token on the scoreboard on the 0 track, and then the round tracker over here is going to start at 1. Players are going to play kind of at most 4, maybe 5 rounds if things haven't cleared up. There's also going to be a win position down at the bottom here, and then looking at each player aid, how it works is, depending on the player count, you're going to get this many points for going out first, that many for second, and that many for third. The deck in Ruins is 1 to 10, 5 copies each, but obviously things are going to change, as you can tell by the 11 here, or the 14 over there. Here we have a game of Ruins set up for 3 players, so depending on the player count, you're going to remove some cards. So like at 3 players, we removed 2 copies of each from 1 to 10. So you're always going to have 10 cards per player in the deck. You're going to deal 9 per player, and any leftover are going to be set nearby because there is drawing in the game. So you're going to want to have kind of a draw deck set over there. Every player is going to get 3 campfire torchlight tokens that have an exhaust side. They're going to be set to their flame side. And then every player is going to be a certain kind of character. This reminds me of maybe like Legends of the Hidden Temple, the blue barracudas, but we have the blue butterflies, or maybe this player, the green frogs, or down here, the red porcupines. There's also going to be a market, and there's going to be discovery cards that will be able to slide into your cards, kind of a card crafting system that is a ruin that gets discovered with different discoveries. And those are going to be set up in kind of like a market of sorts, and that's the cost of how if you wanted to apply or discover that part and slide it into your card. And all you would do is on your turn, you would extinguish the correct amount, take that discovery, and then things would slide down and a new one would come out from the top. So like this one cost 1, whereas that one cost 3. Before the game starts, each player is going to look at the 9 cards in their hand, and they get to choose to flip any of them from their day side to their night side. On the bottom left, it shows what the night side has. So certain abilities are just like a big number. So this player's looking at this, they have a lot of 1s, so they don't maybe want to flip that 1 there, but looking at this 5, this 5 has a pretty good ability, or sorry, this 3 has a good ability of a 5 on the other side, so they are going to choose that. So players will take, as you can tell, There's Big Top on the back, which is a different Allplay game. But for now, for this prototype, we're going to be using the Big Top as like a blocker, because obviously you don't want to know what cards are in people's hands. So everyone has a free kind of flip from day to night, and this is now, it went from a 3, now it's a 5 question mark, which I'll explain what the question marks are. So every player is going to do that simultaneously. After players do that, then starting with the start player, they're going to lead into the first trick. This is a climbing, shedding game. Players are trying to get rid of all the cards in their hand as fast as possible. If you go out first, you get more points. And once you get enough points, then you want to go out first again to win the whole game. With that out of the way, let's say it's the green frog's turn to lead. What can you play in the game? Well, you can play any single card or 2 or more matching cards. So this player could play this 2, or they could play a pair of 1s, or even a triple 3 1s together. Depending on what is played, that has to be matched around the table. So for example, let's say this player did play a 2. Coming clockwise to the blue butterflies, they would have to play either the same number or higher. And so they're looking at their hand, they have this 5 here, they're going to play the 5. Coming to the red porcupine player, notice they also have a 5. If you play the same number, you actually skip the next player and it goes to the player after. So playing the same number is powerful because you skip the next player. And so since they did play a 5, it skips the green player, it goes straight to the blue, and now they're looking at their hand. If they had played a 5, then that would skip the red player and go straight to the green. So you can keep cascading, skipping. You can also just pass if you want to. So let's say the blue player passed. When everyone passes consecutively, the last player remaining will discard the trick. It goes off into the discard, and then they'll lead to the next trick. So again, maybe they play a pair of 2s. When you play a set, the players have to play the same number of cards. So this player over here couldn't play 3 of a kind, they'd have to play 2 of a kind. And let's look at one of their powers here. So the question mark, as you can see on this, is it a wild rank. This card's rank changes to match any of the cards played with it. So this is wonderful. So this player can actually play this 5 and this 4 as 2 4s. So then it comes to the blue player up here, they maybe play 2 10s, and flow like this again will continue until everyone passes. But that is just basic card play. Let's start talking about how discoveries work. Jumping ahead, let's say we're in the middle of this trick here and it's the red player's turn. You can extinguish a certain amount of torches to take any of these cards up here into your hand and add it to one of yours. So notice they have a 3 here. Maybe they really want to play it. They could, if they wanted to, take this discovery up here, which costs 2, so they'd have to flip 2 of their campfire torches. They're going to take this discovery and they slide it in to their card, and now, as you can see, it's a +1. So now this is a 4. So then they have a valid play, and then that would skip that player and go right back to the blue player. Interesting to note, when it comes to the blue player, if they were to pass and it comes back to the red player, that is consecutive passing because that's counted as a pass. So if you're skipped, that's a forced pass. And so this would actually cook the trick. And so then that card, that discovery, has that +1 for the rest of the game. It's just going to be wiped, just like a normal trick, and that can be shuffled and dealt into anyone's hand in subsequent rounds. If you wanted to on your turn, you could spend and get multiple discoveries. Like this player, they could extinguish that one to also take this and maybe add that also to that 3. So they just superpowered it. This has an ability of you can then draw from the draw deck. Let me try to slide that in there, and then they can look at their cards and choose what they want to discard. Maybe they don't want that 3 that they just drew. But yeah, you can buy multiple things. And so how it works is at the end of your turn, so maybe that just happened, this will slide down and you'll refill the market up to 4. So there's always going to be 4 options on a player's turn. Looking at the discovery effects, some of them are optional, so you don't have to if they do say may. Like in that last example with the drawing, you may draw a card from the ruined deck if you do shuffle 1 card from your hand into the deck. So they didn't have to if they didn't want to. But other things that can happen, we have covered adding to a rank. That's what happened with the 3 got added. The wild card also happened, so this changes the rank. This one says you refresh your torches, so when you play, that's how you can get more torches back. Also, you can possibly have an extra card. So one of them, maybe like this plus here, will show that off. You could play if that looked like that. You could play this, because it's a May, you could play it as 2 7s, or again, since it's a May, it could just be a solo 7. So in this example here, that could be 3 7s with just 2 cards. Pretty powerful. And the last one is you may force each opponent with the fewest cards to draw 1 more back. The other thing that you can do on your turn is you can add one of your claim cards. Everyone starts with 2 claim cards at the start of the game to one of your ruin cards. So say you really wanted a 9 for whatever reason, or maybe this was, flipped to a 12 and it was really strong. If you really wanted this card, you can add your claim to it. So you just slide in your claim card in there, and then now, as you can see, you've kind of claimed this site for the blue butterflies. What this means is once it's played and once you're done with the round and yada yada yada, it'll go back in the deck, it'll all get shuffled. But the important thing is when it gets dealt at the start of a next round, if someone has it in their hand, they have to give it to you. You don't give them a card back, so you're actually going to have 1 more card than them. So it's good for them because they get rid of a card. But you will always get this card if it comes up in the game. So you are kind of making a claim that this is going to be my card for the rest of the game. So flow like this is going to continue with players trying to shed out. When a player sheds out, they're going to get the first points. So the 3-player, it's 5 points, and then second points, and then the last place player is going to lose a point. You're going to be moving up and down on the score track. And like I mentioned at the top, if you keep playing rounds, so maybe the first round someone scores 5, and the next round they score 5, so they're down here. If you go out first and you're in one of these 2 win positions, then you win the game. It's not to a first point total. It's not a certain number of rounds. Kind of. It's always to going the first out. You have to go out first if you want to win this game. So over here, what's interesting is if you have played 4 rounds and no one has gone out, you're going to get the players who have the most points at the end of round 4, and they're going to go into an epic showdown, and then whoever sheds out first in that epic showdown, they're going to play a whole other hand, just the players who are tied for the most points, and whoever sheds out in that final showdown is going to win. So you do really need to go out first to win this game. And that's how to play Ruins. Here we have custom heroes, and I'm just going to teach how it's different from Ruins, just to give some context for the discussion later. But how it works is very similar. It's a climbing shading game where you're trying to go out first and get points. And also there are modifications that you're going to add, and you'll slide them in just like how Ruins works. And as you can see, it kind of goes right over the character and sometimes adds powers. And similar to Ruins, you can't have, same beads. The rank would change. That sometimes is like a +3, or sometimes it wipes out or just changes the rank altogether. Like this one, if you slide this one in, it would just change that 3 permanently to a 6. So that's interesting. There's more kind of different powers in here. Some of them are the same as in Ruins. The couple of big things is, one, there's no flipping, like there's no changing from day to night, so all the cards look the same. So I don't know the final production of Ruins, but that's at least 1 less card in there. But also this could have the possibility of more cards, so I think it kind of evens out. Also, players had a player aid, or kind of a player shield that was a player aid, but also you would hide your modifications behind. Now it's, in Ruins, just a marketplace. So you'll just buy them and insert them in the cards right away, so there's no necessarily a reason for that. Also, one of the bigger things that Custom Heroes has is similar to Tichu. You would kind of try to predict that you were going to go out first, and you would, bet 2 points that you could win 2 if you win, the round. But other than that, generally the same. So that is Ruins and Custom Heroes. Huge grain of salt, because before I talk about these 2 games, I wanted to say not only did they send me Allplay, the copy I have right here, Ruins, but also I work with them in a variety of capacities, and also this was a paid Kickstarter preview. So huge, 3 huge grains of salt there. I think to make this less biased, I think most of this will be kind of a comparison of Custom Heroes. I think that is interesting many of you maybe have played custom heroes, so it'd be fun to compare and contrast, and also definitely less bias if I'm just going back and forth. I actually played custom heroes back in the day, before I was doing videos, before I was doing kind of anything in this space. So it's really interesting to be able to play and have kind of a less biased opinion of what trick-taking is or what climbing shitting is, and have kind of a pure plays of custom heroes to compare to Ruins. So it was really fun to go back to this design. I think John DeClaire and John Brieger, who did development on this, did such an amazing job bringing it back. And the art by Jake is also so wonderful. So I think that might be an easy first comparison, is just the art, because there's no way to be too biased. It's just what you definitely prefer. This is, I think AEG was doing, kind of like a big in Japan, like a Japanese kind of aesthetic, where a lot of the art and things you add to the cards, like the sleeving themselves, is kind of anime inspired, and it definitely comes through kind of in the aesthetic and kind of the wackiness to it all. But I think this is, especially if you don't mind it, definitely a good version of, a good kind of aesthetic. It's like all these fighting people, and then you add like balloons, or you add like a rabbit to them. Like it's definitely, for what it is, if you don't mind kind of, I don't want to say hokey, but if you don't mind that vibe, you're in good company. But all that to say, so Ruins, I think, does a great job of working thematically. Like you're digging up and discovering things in this old, these old ruins, and what you're adding is like what you're discovering. So it makes sense thematically, which is great. And I mean, custom heroes did too. You're like leveling up, I guess, or like adding weapons or boxing gloves to your character. But I think what I like about the landscape format is that you're able to slide in these cards pretty well into all of the different ruins, all the different landscapes, and they look great. So I do think maybe it's probably a preference. I personally like Ruins, just because I don't know if I'm too big of like an anime fan, but I don't think you could go wrong either way if you don't mind the theme. To the gameplay, so a lot less powers in Allplay, a lot more streamlined. I think also the way they do the market of cards makes so you don't need like a player screen, and there's less like kind of hidden whatever kind of it was that custom heroes had. And I think for the most part I like it. The only hook, or the only catch, is so custom heroes, and it probably makes sense, custom heroes had like a kind of like a calling of a Tichu in a way. You would kind of bet that you were going to go out first, and if you did, you got more points, whereas they took that out of Ruins, which makes sense. I think I just like Tichu, so I do like that component, but I think for how streamlined Ruins is, that definitely makes sense. So the powers are more simple. The aspect of blocking is more simple. I think, in custom heroes they had like 4, maybe 4 or 5 slots that you could fill. Ruins is just 3, so it's kind of like a focusing of everything. But the biggest thing is it's a market of things you can add to your card, like card improvements. That adds a couple things. It adds like player interaction. So like if you were trying to go for something and someone takes it, that's a level of like, oh, like what do I, what's the next stuff that's going to come out? How do I deal with that? But also I think it is kind of a cleaner gameplay. You can kind of see what players can do. I think the biggest thing for me is the addition of being able to swap something in your hand at the start. So you get kind of like, it kind of kickstarts the fun of the game. I remember watching a Jamie Stegmaier video on deck building, and I brought this into one of my games, Zip Zap Zop, that has like trick-taking deck building, where the first round is like, okay, it's not bad. But then in the video, Jamie mentions like just like kind of fast forward to the fun. So in Zip Zap Zop, like you do one round of buying before you play the trick play, so that you start with some fun cards and you start getting at it. And that's what Ruins does well, is like you get dealt your hand, and at the start of every hand you flip one of the cards to the night side. It's interesting because this, in Custom Heroes, you don't really have a dark side, night side. So in Ruins, you have like 2 cards to start off, and then you add possibly 3, maybe even 4, which is what this is. But in Custom Heroes, you could add possibly like 4 or 5 anyway. So the cards are about the same thickness. But what's interesting is that it immediately has a little bit of agency, some like planning, which I like to start the hand. It kind of gets players, instantly crafting their hand, which is like the shtick of the game, really. And so I like that addition a lot. The last addition, which I think is my favorite, is these. And these are huge. I think this makes the game. I think this is why I would play, mainly, I mean, there's a variety of reasons why I would play Ruins over Custom Heroes, but this is huge to me. These let you claim a card that you played, and you'll always get it back. And what's so clever about this is not only will you always get it back, but it's actually kind of it's a pretty good benefit for the person who draws it at the start of the hand. You get to lose a card. So everyone's happy. It's great. That was maybe not a complaint, because it's definitely the game, but in Custom Heroes, you would sometimes put all this effort, or you would be adding to cards and building cards, and then they would just randomly go away, and you might get them next round, you might not, and that felt not bad, because the game kind of works that way. Like, you could never feel too attached to a card, which always was like, if I'm building a card, I kind of want to be. And this makes it so you are and can be. And it's so wonderful. I love this so much. It's one of my favorite bits of, design or development or whatever it was that I've seen in a while. It's just so clever. It's so fun. I absolutely love it. Whew. Anything else? Yeah, no, most of it is the same. I think what's interesting is, comparing old to new. I don't love skipping a player's turn. Not my favorite. So when you play the same number, you skip the next player. That was in Custom Heroes. It's still in Ruins. I think it makes sense. Maybe players are like moving toward, like if you see a lot of 6s in the game, you'll like card craft to 6s, so there will be a lot more skipping. But I personally don't like that. That's just like a little bit of like, oh man, if you get skipped. It does make it an interesting thing for climbing shedding, because it counts as like a forced pass. If everyone passes, then the trick wipes. So it does add an interesting dynamic. I just don't personally love skipping in games. But I think the currency of the torches and the market is fun. Like, it's more expensive for the newer ones, so, sometimes it takes some time, a while to clear it out. But that river of card modifications is nice. It moves along at a good clip. I also love, big thing that I like is that, so in Custom Heroes, how to win was you had to go out first, and that sometimes took a while. In Ruins, there's a cap at like 4 rounds. You see any winning players, and then they play a final round, and whoever goes out first wins. A little strange, but at least the game ends eventually. Like we have just played games of this where it circled the drain a lot. So Ruins has like a nice definitive end, which I'm appreciative of. So that is Ruins and Custom Heroes. Woo! I hope you check it out. I think card crafting is such a fun thing. I was thinking about the other day about how not too many mechanisms get like brand new mechanisms get invented. Often, Donald Vaccarino with deck building or worker placement with, was it Kalis or Keyflower? I don't remember. Don't yell at me. But card crafting is something that John DeClaire invented, and it's so cool to see. Mystic Veil and Dead Reckoning and all that, but it's so cool to just see more games that use it. It's such a cool mechanism. So that is Ruins and Custom Heroes. Definitely check it out. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you later. Bye!